When Justice Scalia passed away suddenly last February, I made a promise to the American people. If I were elected president, I would find the very best judge in the country for the Supreme Court. Today, I am keeping another promise to the American people by nominating Judge Neil Gorsuch.
Welcome back to The World Over. That was President Donald Trump announcing his choice to replace the Supreme Court vacancy left by the late Justice Antonin Scalia. Judge Neil Gorsuch of Colorado. Gorsuch currently sits on the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. He's 49, making him the youngest Supreme Court nominee in a generation. But what of his qualifications and judicial philosophy? Here to shed some light on all of this, as well as the process that led to the Gorsuch nomination, is attorney and Supreme Court advisor to President Trump, Mr. LEONARD LEO. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
I want to start with this man who, seemingly on the surface, he's got an incredible career, an incredible group of rulings. He clerked on the court for both Justice White and Anthony Kennedy.
Yes.
One loaned him to the other. How did that work? This puts him in pretty good stead. He seems like a mainstream candidate, I'm sure, to most Americans watching.
Raymond, he's exceptional. So he did clerk for both Justices White and Kennedy when Justice White was retiring. Justice White lent him to Justice Kennedy, and he worked for both of them. And before he was on the court, he had a very distinguished educational background, having gone to Columbia and Harvard Law School, and then having gotten his dissertation at Oxford. And I think of special interest to you was that he actually studied under John Finnis, who is the preeminent natural law scholar in the world where he was at Oxford, and he did his dissertation on the moral and legal ramifications of euthanasia. So he's a very, very distinguished individual with a lot of background in philosophy as well as law.
His mother was a Reagan official, a Reagan administration official, the first woman to run the EPA. And then I want to get into a little bit of his judicial philosophy. You are an expert in these matters. You were part of the team that vetted all these candidates, making up first that list of 21 that the president rolled out during the campaign, and then narrowing down the field. When you looked at this man's credentials and the mind in those rulings, you saw what?
Saw a man who was extraordinarily principled, courageous, and committed to interpreting the Constitution and the laws as they're written and according to their original meaning, which is what you want in a judge, because he puts politics and personal feelings aside.
Yeah, and we should say Justice Scalia, for all the characterizations and mischaracterizations of him, Nino Scalia often landed on sides of issues that Republicans were not thrilled with in some areas, but he was a constitutionalist. He was interpreting the law, not writing it. And that was always his mandate, which sometimes did put him a little out of step on some things.
Sometimes
with
it did.
Conservatives.
Yeah, and Judge Gorsuch actually alluded to that. He said during his remarks at the White House the other night that if you're a judge who's always decided cases the way you want to decide them, then you're probably a bad judge.
Yeah, I want to play some of those comments. This is Judge Gorsuch accepting the nomination by President Trump to the Supreme Court and the reaction of Senator Chuck Schumer. Watch.
I pledge that if I am confirmed, I will do all my powers permit to be a faithful servant of the Constitution and laws of this great country. Of course, the Supreme Court's work is vital not just to a region of the country, but to the whole, vital to the protection of the people's liberties under law, and to the continuity of our Constitution, the greatest charter of human liberty the world has ever known.
Judge Neil Gorsuch, throughout his career, has repeatedly sided with corporations over working people, demonstrated a hostility to women's rights, and most troubling, hewed to an ideological approach to jurisprudence that makes me skeptical that he can be a strong and independent justice on the court.
Your reaction, LEONARD LEO, to Chuck Schumer's comments there?
He's a liar, plain and simple. Judge Gorsuch understands that ultimately power rests with the people under our Constitution, and that's how he interprets the Constitution. Grants power to the people, leaves political decisions to the American people. What Senator Schumer wants is a judge who's a rubber stamp for an extreme liberal agenda that he can't get through the legislature. And that's not what President Trump nominated, and that's not what the American people wanted when they elected President Trump in November.
In 2006, and you alluded to this earlier, Judge Gorsuch co-authored a book called The Future of Assisted Suicide and Euthanasia. And in it he writes, all human beings are intrinsically valuable, and the intentional taking of human life by private persons is always wrong. Might this be an obstacle for him during the confirmation hearings?
Oh, I certainly think that the traditional liberal push groups, Now, Planned Parenthood, they'll all trot out this quotation, which we would welcome them to do, because to do so, I think, shows their extremism. Our Constitution is premised on the idea that liberty, human life, those are inextricably intertwined with the structural protections of our Constitution, the separation of powers, federalism, limits on government power. This is what Neil Gorsuch's judicial career has been all about.
Yeah. I want to play this for you. This is Senator Pat Leahy also reacting and concerned about Judge Gorsuch's pre-existing biases. Watch this.
He promised a nominee who would overturn 40 years of jurisprudence established in Roe versus Wade. And with the selection of Judge Gorsuch, it appears as though he's trying to make good on that promise.
Is that what's happening here?
No. What Senator Leahy is referring to are opinions where Judge Gorsuch upheld religious freedom, the Hobby Lobby case and the Little Sisters of the Poor case. Those are not cases that deny women health care. Those are cases that provide very important conscience protections to the American people.
And he was really on both, signed on to both those rulings in favor of Hobby Lobby and the Little Sisters.
Yes, and the Supreme Court affirmed his position. Affirmed his position.
He's an Episcopalian, which on this court makes him, in my eye, he's part of the religious balance, because we have all Catholics and Jews on the court right now. So how will that, do you think, play in this mix on the court? You're a student of these things. You know most of these justices. How do you think he would fit in?
I think he's going to fit in great. You know, he's a very kind, collegial, gracious man. He actually knows several members of the court. A number of his law clerks have clerked on the court over the years. You know, religion doesn't play a very large role in, if any role at all, in the court's business. I mean, culturally, I think, you know, many of them are people of faith. And I think he'll get along very well with the Catholics as well as the Jews on the court.
Let's talk for a moment about your role in this. You are the vice president of the Federalist Society. You decided to step away from it to help President Trump vet these candidates. He even referenced you in a talk not long ago. Leonard's helping us shape all these people. He's very gracious about it. You took a leave of absence. What was the president looking for? What qualities were you looking for as you vetted these candidates?
Well, from the very beginning, when we first started talking in the spring of last year, the president made it very clear what he wanted. And he said it this way: extraordinary talent, respected by all, someone who is going to interpret the Constitution the way the framers meant it to be, someone who's going to go wherever the law takes him, and someone who is, quote, not weak. He understands that one of the biggest problems we have on the Supreme Court when decisions go down the wrong way is it's a lack of courage. They have strength but not courage, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah. Let's talk for a second about Senator Jeff Merkley, who is really very upset about this nomination coming forward at all. He is vowing to oppose it, but these are his reasons for doing so. Watch.
This is not a normal consideration. This is a seat that was stolen from the former president, Obama. That's never been done in U.S. history before. To let this become normal just invites a complete partisan polarization of the court from here to eternity.
An illegitimate and extreme nominee. He says this seat has been stolen by President Trump. Your reaction?
Stolen? Stolen from who? Stolen from President Obama? Stolen from Senator Merkley? From Judge Garland? No, this seat is owned by the American people. And the American people spoke clearly in November when they elected Donald Trump. They said they wanted someone who is going to be an exceptional jurist who is grounded in the text and original meaning of the Constitution. And that's what we have in Neil Gorsuch.
How long do you expect this battle over the Gorsuch nomination to last in the Senate?
This battle will end on the night of April 9th, because the Senate recesses on April 10th, and we will not stop until we know that we have all the Democrats we need to recess and to have Judge Gorsuch confirmed on the 9th.
And you need 8 Democrats to cross over to hit that 60-vote threshold.
Yes. And
You confident you can do that?
7 Democrats so far have said they will support a vote. Now, Senator Schumer tried to walk that back yesterday by saying, oh, well, we all support a vote of 60. Well, that's linguistic gymnastics. That's not a vote. That's a filibuster. And I'm not so sure those 10 red state Democrats from states where Mr. Trump won by very large margins are going to be very willing to stand behind the likes of Chuck Schumer and Dick Durbin when they're up for re-election in 18.
Now, the president is telling Leader McConnell, go ahead and invoke the nuclear option if you have to. But to do so, you need Republican support. Susan Collins has already come out and said she would not support the nuclear option.
Well, I'm not so sure we're going to get to that, because I think that the president is so engaged in this battle, and the vice president as well, that I believe that they're going to put a lot of effort into this, and I think a lot of those more moderate Democrats are going to see that it is not wise to bring this process to the brink. That's our hope and our expectation.
Do you foresee, and I'm hearing this sort of thing in the winds, do you foresee another justice retiring in short order? Are you hearing anything about that?
Well, if you look at the court, Raymond, it's a court that is older than it's been.
Right.
And I think there's a very good chance that President Trump could have 1, 2, or even 3 more vacancies. Absolutely.
3 more vacancies?
Over the course of his presidency, I think absolutely.
Wow. Well, we'll leave it there. Leonard Leo, I hope you'll come back and keep us abreast of what's happening.
Pleasure.